Everyone, please check your audio and video settings, please. Okay, guys. Yeah, any newcomers? Any newcomers? Please listen carefully. The basic course title is Spring Basics, Spring Boot and Microservices. This course is having total 2 entries to attend. Entry 1, nothing but day 1. Okay, where Spring Basics will be launched. Where Spring Basics will be launched. To start this course from entry 1, prerequisite is Core Java and JDBC Basics. Entry 2, when Spring Boot is launched, guys. So to start this course from entry 2, prerequisite is Spring Basics. You should have a Spring Basics knowledge. That means the people who already know Spring, they can join from this particular entry 2. Entry 3 is also there, guys. When Spring REST or Spring Microservice is launched. Okay. Prerequisite is Spring Boot. It is for those people who already know Spring Boot. So right now in this batch, entry 2 is happening. That means I'm launching Spring Boot, followed by that microservice will be launched. Okay. But to start your course, you should have a Spring Basics. What kind of Spring Basics, boss? You should know what is dependency injection, what is IOC container. You should also know annotations related to Spring programming, like @component, @service, @auto-void, @repository. This kind of annotation you should have in your brain. Okay. So these are the various things that we are going to learn as part of this course, guys. Spring Boot intro, Spring Boot mail. That means all modules of Spring we will learn, but in Spring Boot angle we will learn. Because Spring Boot is an approach of developing Spring application. Spring Boot is also framework which internally uses Spring framework. Okay, guys. Spring Boot data JPA and MongoDB. Spring Boot scheduling, Spring Boot MVC, Spring Boot security, and Spring Boot OAuth. As part of that, we will be learning JWT tokens also. Spring Boot REST. Okay. Spring Boot REST, we will be studying in Spring Boot angle only. Spring Boot REST, microservices and Spring Cloud using Spring Boot only. Spring reactive programming, nothing but Spring Webflux, again in Spring Boot angle only. Spring Boot and Angular integration, lot of miscellaneous discussions. Then Spring Boot batch. Okay, guys. Spring Boot actuator and some messaging concepts also we will be there. These are the database software that I am going to use. These are the IDEs, Eclipse with STS plugin, Visual Studio for Angular, boss. And 15 plus tools we will be studying. Okay, these are the things. And we will be studying 4 to 5 mini project. Okay, since some people are demanding, we also need Spring JDBC, Spring AOP, and Spring transaction. Yes, these things will be given in the form of what? Videos. Video recordings will be provided for these 3 modules. So this is the overall thing that we are going to learn. If 1-2 things needed, let me know. I will try to add. Okay, right. Who needs this course? Everyone needs this course. If you want to get a good package, if you want to make your profile bit stronger, weightage of resume you want to increase, definitely everyone needs. Okay, maybe freshers can be happy with the Spring Basics and Spring Boot. Microservices added advantage for them. Expected package, guys, fresher 3 to 6 lakhs, experience 6 lakhs to 14 lakhs you can get after this course. This is our admin information. Okay, guys. JWT tokens will be covered, boss. This is our admin information. Okay, Srikanth, try to prefer only WhatsApp communication. Okay, duration from Spring Boot, 120 plus sessions are required. 7 a.m. to 8:30, 8:40 a.m. Okay, weekly 6 to 7 classes will be there. And this is my personal information. natrajjavaarena@gmail.com is my email ID. Facebook group is what? Natraj Java Arena. And notes will be shared through FB, Facebook group and Google Classroom, guys. And applications will be shared through GitHub. Okay, guys. Array, Thymeleaf is part of Spring Boot MVC, boss. I'm not highlighting miscellaneous topics, please. Please. Thymeleaf is a very small topic which will be covered as part of Spring Boot MVC. Okay, please. Okay, lot when main topic is there, lot of small topics will be covered. There is no need of highlighting separately small topics like Thymeleaf. Okay, right. Fine, boss. So let me put this information for you people in today's class content also. Okay, guys. So REST controller is part of Spring Boot, boss. REST controller is part of Spring Boot. Please concentrate on major topic names. Right, boss. Yeah, those who missed initial 2 classes, don't worry. Backup videos will be provided. I will be giving the URL for you people. Anyone is having first class video URL, boss? Okay, this is our Facebook URL, Facebook group URL, boss. It's a private group and you have to become member in order to get the content. Next, first class video will be there. Yeah, very soon I will share second class video also, don't worry. Okay, I got it, guys. I got it. Right. Now let me share email ID with you people also, boss. Email ID. Email ID. Everyone please share admin details also. Anyone, one person please share admin details. natrajjavaarena@gmail.com is the admin detail, boss. Right. Super. So shall we get into the today's discussion, boss? Yes. Today's discussion will be there in the form of PDF document. If any important points are there, I will write in. Even paintbrush. So I will share that PDF document with you people. Don't worry. Done, boss. Yeah, now listen, this is the basic symbol of how Spring Boot looks, guys. User uses Spring Boot. Come on. Spring Boot internally uses Spring. Programmer uses Spring Boot and Spring Boot internally uses Spring. Getting my point? Yes. Okay, nice. Pros and cons of Spring Boot. Advantages and disadvantages of Spring Boot. Yes, there are some limitations also with the Spring Boot, guys. We cannot use Spring Boot for migration of the project. You cannot think about converting existing Spring project into Spring Boot. Spring Boot is always for new projects, scratch level development. For migration of existing Spring project, Spring Boot cannot be used. So that's why generally people says Okay. For brownfield projects, Spring Boot cannot be used. For greenfield projects, Spring Boot can be used. The project that is started from scratch level is called greenfield project. The project that is migrated from one technology to another technology or enhancing existing project with new enhancements is called brownfield, boss. Brownfield. I think Naya Raipur is a greenfield city. Chandigarh, not Chhattisgarh, sorry. Chandigarh is a greenfield city because they are the cities that are constructed from the scratch level, right? Okay. Hyderabad comes under brownfield city. Hyderabad is already there. On the top, enhancements are happening, right? Delhi is a brownfield city. Okay, in Andhra Pradesh, Amravati. In Andhra Pradesh, Amravati, they thought of constructing as what? Greenfield city, but somehow it got stuck up. Okay, now new government is trying to take Vizag as a brownfield capital, not as a greenfield capital. They said 3 capital and all 3 capitals are what? Brownfield capitals. Already on exist. Lavasa is the new city constructed in nearby Pune, boss. That is also okay. Greenfield city, boss, because they constructed from the scratch level. But some restrictions have gone. It also got stuck up. Okay. Okay. Now listen. One more thing, guys. I have seen people log in with devices names, Mr. X, Mr. Y. Okay, such people answers will be ignored, guys. You have to log in with your original name. In future, one unique ID will be given. In future, once registration payments are done, one unique ID will be given, and you have to mention that unique ID along with your name. So now onwards, the people who are having this kind of names, Mr. X, zigzag names, numbers, okay, something Bluetooth, Android, some names are there. Such people questions will be ignored. Such people questions will be ignored because I feel they are not genuine people at all. Log in with real names, ask questions in the chat box and get the answers. Fine. Because learning Spring Boot, learning microservice is not a crime. So there is no need of hiding your name. Because learn nicely, boss. Come on. Are you feeling guilty of learning Spring Boot and microservices? No. So it's a royal work. So when you are doing royal work, why are you hiding your names? Okay, boss. Pros and cons of Spring Boot, guys. Pros, that means positives, advantages. It's very easy to develop Spring-based applications with Java Groovy. Not only we can develop Spring Boot applications in Java language, boss. We can also Groovy. Okay, we can also use Groovy. And nowadays, one more language is also added, boss. Kotlin. Okay, now we can develop Spring Boot applications using Java, using Groovy, using Kotlin. Okay, so now let me add that point, boss. All these are JVM based languages, boss. You know that, na? What do you mean by JVM based language? They have their own syntaxes. After compilation, all of them gives dot class file. All of them gives dot class file. And using same JVM, all these dot class files can be executed. So that's the reason these are called JVM based languages, boss. Okay. Java, Groovy, okay, Scala, Kotlin, and etc. are called JVM based languages. That means That means they have their own syntaxes of code development, but all of them all of them gives same dot, okay, give dot class file after compilation, and these dot class files can be executed using same JVM. See guys, .java gives me dot class file. Okay, after compilation we will get dot class file. Dot groovy, I'm assuming dot groovy here, groovy C. Let us assume we have a compiler called groovy C. Here dot class file. Next dot scala dot class file. Let us assume scala C. Okay. Next dot Kotlin. Here Kotlin C. Let us assume Kotlin compiler, guys. Dot class file. Yes. And all these files can be executed using same JVM. Okay, guys. Can be given to same JVM for execution. Right. Okay, guys. JVM for execution. Here is the output. Right. For execution. Here is the output. Now listen, I think dot kt, yeah. Fine. Understanding my point, guys? Now listen. Still Java is popular. Still Java is popular in the market. Not the Kotlin, not the Scala, not the Groovy. Why, sir? Array, features of Groovy now they're in Java. Features of Scala now they're in Java. Features of Kotlin now they're in Java. As these people are bringing new feature, Java people are inspiring and they are also adding to Java. So that's why still to develop Spring Boot application, no doubt in that. Okay, no doubt in that. So Java is the best. That's why you observe earlier Java people used to take 1.5 years to 2 years to release each version. But if you observe after Java 8 onwards, for every 6 months, 3 months, they are adding new releases. I think from Java 12 and Java 14 came in the gap of 3 months, boss. Java 14 and 15 also came in the gap of 3 months. It's because of what? Okay, as these people are adding new features, okay, somehow Java people realizing, oh, we should also have that feature. That's why in Java also they're bringing those features. Actually, functional programming, lambda expression based functional programming is not first introduced in what? Java, boss. Is first introduced in Scala. There it has become super popular because while learning data science in big data environment in 1-2 places, people learn Scala. Okay, their functional programming has become super hit. Then they brought into the Java. Okay. 50% of Java 8 features are inspired from Scala, boss. I'm not saying Oracle Corporation not doing their own R&D, giving their own features. Apart from their own features, and they are inspiring some features that are there in what? Right, boss. Okay. So without Spring, there is no Spring Boot, Mr. Funny. Okay. So definitely Spring is still alive. Right, boss. Okay. Now listen, we can develop Spring Boot applications in the following JVM based languages. In the following JVM based languages. Number one, Java. This is best. So that's a don't be panic about other things, guys. Groovy. Number C is okay, Kotlin. Kotlin. Right. Let's come to this discussion. Next one, it reduces lot of development time and increases productivity. Auto configuration, boss. Because of auto configuration, definitely it reduces what? Lot of development time and increases productivity. No doubt in that. It avoids writing lot of boilerplate code. Technology related boilerplate code is avoided by framework, Spring Framework. Spring Framework related boiler code is avoided by whom? Spring Boot. Come on, come on. Already technology is having boilerplate code. Spring Framework is avoiding. And Spring Framework related boilerplate code will be avoided by technology. Okay. Will be avoided by Spring Boot, guys. Super. Next one. It's very easy to integrate Spring Boot applications with its ecosystems like Spring JDBC, Spring ORM, Spring Data, Spring Security. That means though you are going to Spring Boot, guys, you can still work with all the modules of Spring. You can still enjoy all the modules of Spring. That's it. Next one. It follows. It follows. Okay. Yes, guys. It follows opinionated default configuration approach to reduce the effort, developer effort. I said, na, based on the starters you add, based on the jars you add, auto configuration takes place. Auto configuration takes place. Auto configuration is also called opinionated default configuration. Opinionated. Array, you are dressing up very well and going outside. Okay, definitely opposite person comes to an opinion you are going on date or not. That is opinionated, right? So similarly, Spring Boot also very intelligent, guys. Based on the starters, based on the jars that you have added in the project, it will start giving some classes as Spring Beans. It will give some embedded servers. It will give some in-memory databases. It will give some configurations automatically. It will give some plugins automatically. Again, he's talking about auto configuration. One day, all of a sudden, you have done clean shaving, okay, polished your shoe, and wore formals and gone out. All your roommates, you need not to tell to your roommates, I am going to interview, right? You need to tell separately, I am going to interview. By seeing your look, by seeing your look, they will come to one conclusion. Today this guy got interview, he is going to interview. So opinionated default, guys. Next one. It provides embedded HTTP servers like Tomcat Jetty to develop and test our web applications very easily. So in development environment, you don't have separate servers to install. You have memory issues to install or some other issues to install. No problem. You can work with embedded servers. It provides CLI, command line interface. A Spring Boot application can be developed from command prompt by giving commands. Anyone studied Maven Gradle? We can build Maven Gradle application from CLI, command prompt also, by using Maven Gradle commands. Command 1, create the project. Command 2, compile. Command 3, execute. Come on. Similarly, Spring Boot application also can be built from command prompt by giving lot of commands, guys. Okay. To develop test Spring Boot, Java or Groovy application from command prompt very easily and quickly. But no one uses this one, guys. Okay, guys. No, Maven is the correct one. Okay, no one uses this one, guys. Okay, everyone prefers IDE based development only. It provides lots of plugins to develop and test Spring Boot application very easily using build tools like Maven and Gradle. That means Maven Gradle support is there. It provides lot of plugins to work with embedded and in-memory databases very easily. I don't want to install database software, but I want to preserve the data temporary basis. Okay, then we have a in-memory databases. Okay, in production environment, no one uses in-memory databases because in production environment, data has to be saved permanently across the multiple executions. A lot of persistence is required. But in development and testing environment, without installing database software, you want to have a feel of what your data is preserved. Then we can go for what? In-memory databases. See, guys, these many options are there. Next, limitations of Spring Boot, guys. It's very tough and time-consuming process to convert existing or legacy Spring Framework project into Spring Boot application. It's applicable only for brand new greenfield projects. Brand new greenfield projects. So that's the biggest limitation that Spring is having. Why, sir? In Spring project, nothing comes through auto configuration because there is no auto configuration feature, right? In Spring, is there any auto configuration feature, guys? No. There is no auto configuration feature. Spring Boot says I will give everything through auto configuration. So then it's practically impossible. It's practically impossible, okay, to delete already configured Spring Beans, already developed Spring Beans, and getting them and using them through auto configuration. Getting them and using them through auto configuration. And next one, Spring is not having starters. Spring Boot is having starters. Again, okay, removing the jars, adding the starters, and removing accordingly some Spring Bean configurations. It's very, very tough, boss. Is very, very tough. That's why we always prefer Spring Boot for what? Greenfield projects, guys. What projects? Greenfield projects. Right. Let me add that point also. The biggest limitation of, I'll share Paintbrush, I'll share PDF, both. The biggest limitation of Spring Boot is it cannot be, it is very tough. It's very tough and time consuming process to migrate Spring Framework projects into Spring Framework projects into Spring Boot projects, guys. Spring Boot projects. That means it is not for It is not for brownfield projects. Brownfield projects. That means an enhance, not for brownfield projects. That means project enhancement, and migration. It is purely for purely for greenfield projects, new projects. It's purely for new projects. Right, guys? Now listen, we can develop Spring Boot application in 4 angles, guys. We can always develop Spring Boot application in 4 angles. Using Spring Boot CLI tool, that means command prompt. Using IDE. Using STS IDE, which is given exclusive for Spring Boss, STS IDE. Using Spring Initializer. By going to website also, we can construct the project, guys. But what is industry standard is by configuring STS plugin with Eclipse IDE. By configuring STS plugin with Eclipse IDE. Are you getting my point? Yes. Different approaches of developing Spring Boot projects. Yes, boss. Right. Different approaches of developing Spring Boot project. And this is the best. This is best. And any approach, guys, any approach internally, Maven or Gradle will be used. Come on. Maven or Gradle will be used. Yes, see, guys, Eclipse is popular IDE. Eclipse with STS plugin is more popular, right? And popular IDE in the market is Eclipse only, not STS. Out of 10 people or 10 projects, 9 projects uses Eclipse with STS. Only 1-2 projects may be using STS IDE on its own. But most of the industry prefers Eclipse with STS. And I am also going to use Eclipse with STS plugin. If you are interested, you can cross verify by talking to any working friends. Internally, Maven Gradle will be used. So, internet connection. To work with Maven Gradle, net connection is required while developing the projects or not. So, internet connection is required while creating and developing projects. Yes, boss. All the 4 approaches internally do that. Fine, boss. Yeah, something groovy I have given. Right. Okay. Anand Verma is confirming in his company is using Eclipse plus STS plugin, boss. That's cool. Rajesh Magar, without Maven Gradle, can we develop Spring Boot application? Possible, but very complex. Possible, but very complex. Right. Listen, guys, even though Spring is a great framework, it has few pitfalls. Spring Boot was built not just address them, it also provide direction to the future software development. Okay, guys. Spring's XML-based configuration is a nightmare in the world of automation. There was no clear leader in the Java framework world to support microservices. Yes, Spring Boot is even designed to support microservices programming. Okay, I will explain technically later what is microservice architecture. One project is having 10 modules, guys. Listen. One project is having 10 modules. Okay. Okay. If it is microservice architecture, these 10 modules will be developed as a 10 projects. And later they will be integrated. Are you listening my statement, guys? So that's the beauty of microservice architecture. Normal projects, project with 10 modules, all of them are part of single project. Microservice project, 10 modules, 10 10 small projects, and they will be integrated whenever they want. And to develop projects based on microservice architecture, Spring Boot is the best environment. Spring Boot is the best environment. Spring Boot is the better environment, boss. Why, sir? Array, if all 10 people who are developing 10 modules as 10 separate projects uses Spring Boot, I can say all 10 projects are based on common standards or not. So when they are developed using common standards, integration becomes quite easy or not. Okay, guys. Java framework world support microservices. You really don't want different teams building microservice to adapt a different set of Java libraries and look very different to each other. See, guys, if I don't use Spring Boot, different teams uses different environments to develop what? Each microservice, each of their microservice, and they look different. But if all of them are developing their microservice projects, architecture-based projects using Spring Boot, so integration becomes quite easy. So standardization of microservices is done with the support of Spring Boot, because Spring Boot also internally gives a lot of support for microservice programming. Okay, guys. What Spring Boot brings to the table? Convention over configuration. Actually, in Spring programming, boss, what you need, you should specify everything. That is called configuration. But Spring Boot gives, what is that? Convention. What you need not to specify everything manually, boss. Based on the 1-2 activity you do, other things will be decided. Based on the starters you add, based on the jars you add, some Spring Beans are coming automatically, some servers are coming automatically, some plugins are coming automatically. That means what's happening, guys? Convention is more compared to configuration. I hope you understood this word, convention over configuration. Configuration says you should tell everything what you need. Otherwise, I cannot give. Convention says, give me hints. I will take the rest of the things. Give me hints. I will take care of the rest of the things. So due to this, productivity will be improved like anything or not. Next one, standardization of microservices. Just now I talked, boss. Just now I talked about it. One of the main objectives of Spring Boot is to provide unified ecosystem of libraries and standards to all developers utilizing microservice methodologies. Okay, guys, methodologies. Any project adopting microservices would have multiple teams, and we certainly don't want each of team to build the software in a different way. The teams will also be benefit from all the annotations and tooling Spring Boot brings. However, it also provides a common platform and library support, reduced setup configuration time and development environment, and cloud support. Because in microservice environment. Okay, guys. Rudragowda Patil, I will show practically how to develop Spring Boot application. Please, guys. Please. That's a practical one. I am going to launch it. Right. I think everyone got it. Standardization of microservices, guys. In microservice environment, multiple projects will be developed as, multiple modules will be developed as multiple projects using multiple teams. If every team follow their own standard, their own libraries to develop each project, integration becomes difficult. Since Spring Boot gives microservice support and some libraries and some common things to develop microservice environment, if all people uses Spring Boot to develop their what microservice projects, okay, some annotations and other plugins reduces the efforts, boss. Right. As of now, there is no alternate for Spring Boot in the market. Alternate for Spring Boot is nothing but Spring only. Right, boss. Now listen, integrated server development. Okay, Spring Boot gives built embedded servers, guys. Tomcat, Jetty kind of servers. Okay, there is no need of you arranging server separately. Embedded server means along with the project itself, server will be there. Embedded. Come on, guys. Next one. Cloud support, guys. Cloud support. Yes, definitely Spring Boot is even giving cloud support. That means we can keep Spring Boot projects in cloud environment. Which kind of cloud? AWS we can use, Azure we can use, Cloud Foundry Pivotal is there, PCF. Spring people are having their own cloud environment, guys. PCF, Pivotal Cloud Foundry. Understanding my statement. Spring Boot provide cloud support for configuration, tools and clients. It also compatible with cloud native and works seamlessly with what? Cloud Foundry Pivotal. Nowadays, it is even supporting AWS and Azure also. Next one, adapt and support for third-party library. What libraries? Third-party libraries. So in microservice programming, we have to use a lot of third-party libraries, guys, for load balancing, for short circuit activities, okay, for gateway operation, for configuration operation. In microservice programming, a lot of libraries are required. Okay, guys. Spring Boot has taken significant step and widened support for third-party open source libraries like Netflix OSS. You know, Netflix has OTT, boss, but Netflix is also one vendor providing some libraries. NoSQL DBs, it supports multiple NoSQL DBs like MongoDB kind of thing. Distributed cache, Redis is one distributed cache, guys. You'll find full list and other one. Right. Now listen, this is the basic formula of Spring Boot. Spring Boot is equal to Spring minus Spring configuration, nothing but XML configuration plus embedded servers. But I don't highlight embedded servers, I highlight auto configuration. Auto configuration gives embedded server now, boss. Okay. So different people will use different formulas, but basic formula is this one, boss. What is that? Okay. Spring Boot is equal to Spring minus XML configuration plus embedded servers. This fellow is highlighting, but I would like to highlight auto configuration. Yes. Now listen. Spring Boot components. When we arrange Spring Boot, when we add Spring Boot project to Spring Boot support to project, what we get? Okay, look at this diagram first. A basic Spring Boot gives these many components, guys. Auto configure component, Spring Boot core component, CLI component, actuator component, starters component, and tools component. So these are the various components that Spring Boot is having. Are you understanding my statement, guys? Don't worry, I will compare Spring and Spring Boot also. Our next discussion is that only. First, try to understand, okay, what is what. So shall we start understanding one by one? Spring Boot auto configure. I need not to explain. Based on the starters and jars that we have added, so many things will come automatically. Lot of common things will come automatically. Come on, guys. So that is called auto configure. Next one, Spring Boot core, guys. Spring Boot core. What is this? Array, ability to read from properties file, ability to read from YML file. YML is AML file is alternate for property file, guys. Validating that all these things will be taken care by Spring Boot core, base for all other components, guys. This is base for all modules. That means Spring Boot component means each component they are treating as a module. It is nowhere related to Spring modules, guys. But it also provides some functionality that can be used on its own, especially using command line arguments. Using command line arguments. Okay. And YML files as a Spring environment property sources and automatically binding environment properties to Spring Bean properties. Array, come on, guys. Working with property file, working with YML files, reading and binding environment variable system properties to Spring Bean properties will be taken care by Spring Boot core, guys. Next, Spring Boot CLI. I said we can develop Spring Boot application step by step by giving various commands at command prompt level, and this module will take care of that part. But Spring Boot CLI is not popular. Everyone in the industry prefers what? Developing application by using Eclipse only. A command line interface based on Ruby to start stop Spring Boot created applications. Next, Spring Boot actuators. This is very important, guys. Spring Boot actuators are called non-functional features. What, guys? Non-functional features. You develop Spring Boot application, guys, by adding actuator supports. Lot of non-functional features will come, like health metrics. If you add actuator, okay, health metrics will come. What do you mean by health metrics? Array, once you add Spring Boot actuator for any Spring Boot project, okay, you will get separate GUI or CUI environment, okay, providing memory details, guys, and health of the project also. Okay, total how many objects are created. Okay, how much memory it is using in the RAM. You need not to develop them separately, boss. You just need to add actuators. These are called non-functional features. Why non-functional features? Because these are not part of any project development, guys. But these are there to monitor the project, to control the project, to do various settings of the project. Come on, guys. That's the reason they named it as what? Non-functional features. Array, come on, guys. Okay, for example, project maintenance becomes easy, guys. Project enhancement becomes easy because of these non-functional features. Ready-made non-functional features these are, guys. See, guys, this project when added will enable certain enterprise features like security, metrics, default error pages. Okay, generally what happens, guys, in web applications, web application, 404 error or 500 error will come. In Spring Boot web application, you never get 404 error and 500 error because Spring Boot itself gives default error pages. But in Spring project and Servlet JSP project, if you want to avoid seeing 404 and 500 error messages on the browser, okay, on the browser, come on, guys. Okay, we have to do a lot of explicit configuration, but in Spring Boot web application, such headache is not there. Okay, you will be having default error pages. Okay, metrics means detailed information. How many objects, how many processes, whether RAM size is okay, heap memory is okay, all these details will come. Are you understanding my statement, guys? So due to this, what happened? Monitoring of the project becomes easy. It is no way related to inserting record, updating record, or developing web application or something else. That's why these are named as what? Non-functional features. What features, guys? Non-functional features. Are you with me, boss? Right. Listen to your application. As auto configure module, it uses auto detection to detect certain framework feature of your application. For example, you can see all REST services defined in an application using Activator. Array, I have added RESTful web services, boss. How many services are added? I want to list down. So we can do with the support of Activators. It is part of our course and we are going to learn it. Next one, Spring Boot starters. Yesterday we spent a lot of time, guys. It's all about adding dependencies, boss. Okay, but these dependencies will give only main and dependent jars, even relevant jars. Relevant jars also it will give. What, guys? Relevant jars also it will give. Okay, Spring Boot different quick start projects to include as dependency. As a dependency. In your Maven Gradle build file, okay, it will have need dependencies for the type of application. Currently, there are many starter projects and many more expected to be added. Okay. Spring Boot tools, guys. Spring Boot is even giving support for what? Maven and Gradle tools, boss. What tools nice? Maven and Gradle tools. Okay, as well as custom Spring Boot loader used in single execution var jar file is included in this project, but mainly support, tool support is there. That is what I'm trying to explain, boss. Right, now I'll take this one. I'll try to keep for your reference, boss. Spring Boot components are modules. Spring Boot components. Right. Yes, we are going to study all these things, my dear, one by one. I'm just introducing what is what. Actuators will study separately, tools will study separately, starters we daily use it. Daily use it. Fine, boss. Now listen. Spring Boot starters, guys. So these are the various starters that are there. These are the various starters that are there. Okay, for batch processing related starters are there. These are categories, various category starters. For messaging based application development, messaging starters are there. Core starters are there to develop basic Spring Boot application. Data store means Spring Boot data JPA kind of starters are there. To work with cloud environment, cloud related starters are there. To develop web application related starters are there. To work with third party APIs and third party API related starters are there. Netflix OSS is what? And third party API, boss, to add some facilities in microservices environment. Okay, these are various starters that we are having. So these are categories only. These are categories only. Nearly 1,000+ starters are there, boss. And every starter is a separate project which can be added to our Spring Boot project as a dependency. Okay, boss. So I need not to highlight the starters. Okay, look at this diagram. How to develop Spring Boot application. How to develop Spring Boot application, boss. So this is the typical way of developing Spring Boot application, boss. Right. Either by using start.spring.io or Spring Boot CLI or Eclipse with STS plugin or IntelliJ with STS plugin. STS with STS plugin, Eclipse with STS plugin, or IntelliJ with STS plugin. You have to create Spring Boot project by choosing one or other build tool, either Maven or Gradle. So what we generally do, we use Eclipse with STS, plus we choose Maven tool, and we choose starters. Come on, we choose starters, nothing but jars, boss. And we start developing application. Okay, to make any application as Spring Boot application, there is one standard annotation called @Spring Boot application annotation. So there we do coding, boss. There we do coding. There we do coding. Are you listening my statement, guys? At the end, we will get the packed jar file, either having code and Tomcat server. If it is a web application, you will get embedded server. If it is a normal application, you will get a jar with just having code. You will be just having code. Once again, I repeat what I am going to do. I choose Eclipse with STS. I choose Maven or Gradle. For few days Maven, for few days Gradle. I don't know Maven Gradle. Don't worry, classes will happen on it. So urgency is there. I want to learn. Videos are there on Maven and Gradle, boss. I will share the URLs. You can watch them and you can keep yourself ready. Right. And we choose starters for enjoying auto configuration. Then we develop the application, and minimum annotation that we add is what? Spring Boot application. This is the minimum annotation. Then we pack everything. We get the code, boss. Standalone application, jar with code. If it is a web application, jar with code plus embedded server. All right. So it's a typical way of developing Spring Boot application, boss. It's a typical way of developing Spring Boot application. Don't worry. Okay. Jar with code means Java code will be there. Nothing will be there. Packaging, boss. Code means Java code will be there. .class files. Okay. Spring Boot application development. Development process. Spring Boot application development process. Okay. Here you can even use one more thing as RCLI or Spring Boot CLI. Okay. Let me put one box here for you. Yes, guys. Is that clear, guys? Fine. So, shall we go for developing our first application, boss? Basic application I want to develop. This kind of application we already developed by using what? Spring Framework. And today I would like to develop by using Spring Boot environment. I would like to develop by using what? Spring Boot environment. After that, I will explain so many things related to that application. So shall we start the process, boss? Shall we start the process? Okay. Procedure to develop first Spring Boot application. Okay. Showing dependency injection. Showing dependency injection. Okay. Don't expect in the first project itself auto configuration. Okay, don't expect first project is just auto configuration. I will add auto configuration support slowly. Okay, it's a purely showing dependency injection. That means habituating with Spring, nothing else, boss. Okay. What is this one? What is this one? I have two classes. Wish message generator. Wantedly, I am taking same example of Spring so that you will get the difference between both. Local date and time. Local date time. This is my target class, guys. This is my target class. Okay. This is my target class. This is my dependent class. This is my dependent class. Yes. This is my dependent class. And I want to do injection. I just want to do injection. So this class is having one property. What is that property? Local date time. Array has a property should be taken now, boss. Local date time date. Local date time date. What is this? Has a property for injection. I have to take one as a property, guys. Next. Wantedly same example I am giving so that you can compare. You can see the differences. I'm giving something wantedly means please. Okay. Next, here we are having one business method. Generate wish message. String user. String user wish message. Okay, it's a public method, guys. String. So here I want to develop logic to generate the wish message based on current date and time that I gathered from local date time object. Okay, uses the injected, tell me, local date time object to know the current hour of the day and to generate the wish message. Current hour of the day and to generate the wish message. To generate the wish message accordingly. This is the plan, boss. Okay, guys. Tell me, what are the annotations we are having? What are the annotations we are having to configure Java class as Spring Bean, boss? Stereotype annotations we are having. Can you tell me what they are? @ component. I'm just revising. By keeping newcomers in mind, I'm just revising. @service, @controller, @controller, @repository, and etc. These are called stereotype annotations, boss, to configure Java class as Spring Bean. Java class as Spring Bean. Java class as Spring Bean. That means internally creates Java class object and makes it as Spring Bean. Yes, boss. Tell me, guys, to perform field level injection, what should I do? To perform field level injection. Field level injections. To perform field level injection, what should I do? Yes. Field level injection, we should use @auto-void. Use @auto-void on field. At field level. Okay. At field level, we have to use, guys. So for example, so this is a public class wish message generator. What, guys? Public class wish message generator. How to make it as a Spring Bean, guys? Component WMG. Okay. Now we have to take one has a property. What property? Has a property. Local date time. So date. How to do field level injection, guys? At the rate auto void. Come on. You already know all this stuff, right? At the rate auto void. And as usually here one business method. This class also contains business method having business logic or not. Yes, this class also contains business method having business logic. Now tell me guys, how to configure predefined class as Spring Bean? How to configure predefined class as Spring Bean? To configure predefined Java class as Spring Bean. Okay, Spring Bean, use at the rate XML. Come on, Spring Boot no XML. In Spring Boot no XML. Come on, what's happening? At the rate bean method definitions. Definition in at the rate configuration class. In at the rate configuration class. Are you listening my statement, guys? Okay, what is this configuration class, guys? Alternate to Spring Bean configuration file. Alternate to Spring Bean configuration file. Nothing but a XML file, guys. Purely alternate to Spring Bean configuration file. Are you listening, my boys? Okay, no application context.xml. In that place, what you will get? Configuration class will come. Understanding my statement? Okay, boss. Right. But listen carefully, boss. In Spring Boot application, we don't develop configuration class separately, boss. We develop one class having at the rate Spring Boot application. At the rate Spring Boot application annotation. This is combination of three annotation internally. This annotation is internally uses three annotation. Number one, at the rate configuration. At the rate configuration to make Java class as configuration class, guys. Java class as configuration class. Next, at the rate component scan. Yes, at the rate component scan annotation is also there. Now listen. To recognize current package and its sub packages. Its sub packages maintained stereotype annotation classes as Spring Beans. Stereotype annotation classes as stereotype annotation based Java classes as Spring Beans. Are you listening my statement, boss? Come on. Yes, what's the beauty, guys? Current package and sub package is related. Current package and sub package is related. Stereotype annotation based Java classes will automatically recognized as Spring Beans. You need not to write at the rate component scan separately, because at the rate Spring Boot application and annotation itself having that one. Okay, guys. Next, third one. At the rate enable auto configuration. Yes, I need not to tell, guys, to enable auto configuration. Okay. To enable auto configuration. So now tell me guys, in Spring Boot applications, we develop configuration class by using @Spring Boot application annotation. We don't use configuration separately. I hope you convinced it, guys. You convinced it, guys. Come on. Yeah, in Spring Boot application, auto configuration means what? My dear Nikhil, I hope you missed yesterday's class. Auto configuration means Spring Boot will give common things. Spring Boot will give common things. Come on, guys. Yeah, some Spring Boot specific new annotations will be there. Enable auto configuration is Spring Boot supplied annotation. Be mentally ready to see Spring Boot supplied new annotations. Is that clear, guys? Be mentally ready. Spring Boot supplied new annotations. I need not to highlight every time. Okay. Someone is asking what is auto configuration. Okay, based on the starters, nothing but jars that are added to the project. Okay, some common things will happen. What kind of common things? Making certain predefined classes as Spring Beans, providing certain plugins, doing some configurations, providing some built-in servers, embedded servers or built-in servers, providing some in-memory databases. These things will happen automatically internally based on the jars that are added. That is called auto configuration. Nikhil, I hope you got basic idea. Common things will come automatically. That is called auto configuration. Understanding my statement, boss? Right. Now tell me, in Spring Boot application, we develop configuration class using Spring Boot application annotation. Okay, guys. Spring Boot application annotation. Are you understanding my statement, guys? Which internally uses configuration and other annotations. Okay, boss. Other annotations. Right, boss? Now listen carefully. Public class app config or some other name, but we don't write configuration and components can separately. So we write what, guys? Spring Boot application. Spring Boot application annotation is written, and here I'm going to write @bean method. Come on, guys. In 100% code driven approach, we studied all these things. Studied or not? @bean name is equal to LDT local. This is bean ID. Right? Public local date time. It looks like more of 100% code, but auto configuration is extra. Spring Boot looks like 100% code, but embedded servers are extra. Spring Boot looks like auto configuration, actuators are extra. Come on. So 100% code plus auto configuration plus embedded servers plus actuators plus is nothing but Spring Boot. Are you understanding my statement? Okay. Create LDT. Array my choice method. Any name I can take. Any name I can take. Come on, guys. Return new local date time. Sorry, it is not a new operator based one. This is what? I will give flow also. I will give flow. Right now I'm introducing what is what. Local date time. Local date time dot now off. Local date time dot now off. So some other code will be there. Don't worry about right now. Array is Java 8 boss. Local date time is Java 8. Now method returns what? Local date time object having system date and time, current date and time. And at the rate bean annotation takes that object, makes it as a spring bean. Okay. Makes it as a spring bean. This method returned. This method returned. This method returned local date time object will become spring bean having bean id LDT, because I have given bean id now boss. Right now listen guys, how I configured user defined class at the rate component, how I'm doing injection at the rate auto void. So predefined class at the rate bean. Only the thing is, I'm not developing configuration class using at the rate configuration. We are trying to develop by using what? At the rate Spring Boot application annotation. Okay. So I'm just telling what is what. I'm going to put all of them in practice, boss. Don't worry. Right. Now listen carefully. Thumb rule. Thumb rule to develop Spring Boot application. Yes, remember this thumb rule in mind and start developing Spring Boot application, boss. Okay. If you feel all these are new to you, don't worry. Just concentrate on thumb rule. Number 1, configure user-defined classes as Spring Beans. Configure. Okay, Spring Boot application. 1 minute. Mistake has come. Configure user-defined classes as Spring Beans using stereotype annotations. Stereotype annotations. Are you getting my point, guys? This is the thumb rule 1. Thumb rule 2. Configure predefined classes as Spring Beans using at the rate bean methods of at the rate Spring Boot 1 minute. At the rate Spring Boot application class only when they are not coming through. Only when they are not coming through auto configuration. Are you understanding? If they are coming through auto configuration, should I go for at the rate bean methods? Only when they are not coming through auto configuration. Number C. Number C. Provide inputs to auto configuration process. Auto configuration process using application.properties or YML file. Application.properties or YML file. Application.properties or YML file. Are you understanding my statement, guys? Okay, YML I'll explain. Alternate to property file, YML is there. Ain't markup language. Ain't markup language. YIANT. Ain't markup language. Compared to property file, 1-2 advantages are there. Okay, that's why we prefer working with what? YML. Sir, you have not given differences between Spring and Spring Boot. First, let me complete 1-2 applications in Spring Boot. You settle down in Spring Boot. Then if I compare Spring and Spring Boot, you will enjoy. Otherwise, you feel they are very theoretical points, guys. Number D. Number D. So right now I am giving these steps for standalone application, boss. I am giving these steps for standalone application. See, guys, this is very crucial. You have to configure predefined class as what? Spring Bean using @bean methods only if they are not coming through auto configuration. Only when they are not coming through auto configuration. This is very important. Mr. What is your doubt? Prashant Kumar, what is your doubt in point B? Tell me where you stuck it up. You have to configure predefined class as Spring Bean using @bean like this. If they are not coming as a Spring Bean using auto configuration, because based on the jars we had, based on the starters we had, I said certain classes will come as Spring Beans automatically. If they are coming as Spring Beans automatically through auto configuration, then don't write @bean methods. Okay, Rajesh, you only adding starters now? Sir, how I will know whether which bean comes through auto configuration or not? I only added starter, and I should know which starter gives which beans as which classes as Spring Beans through auto configuration. Other day I said, if I add Spring -boot -starter JDBC, I will get data source through auto configuration, JDBC template through auto configuration, named parameter JDBC template through auto configuration. Either you have to know through documentation or you open auto configuration related jar file. Some special naming convention will be there to know which classes are coming through auto configuration. In future, I will show that. Definitely documentation will give that information, or if you open the source code of jar file, there also you will get the information. Come on, guys. Okay. It's more of 100% code driven configuration. 1-2 things are extra. Right, boss. Okay. Chandan Kumar, why starters will decrease the performance at the end? Jars only, na boss. Okay, guys. Now listen. Get IOC container. Get IOC container from Spring application dot run method. You need not to create IOC container. We have a ready-made method Spring application dot run, which internally do so many things, including container creation. Get IOC container from Spring application dot run method and complete your client application works. And complete your client application jobs. Okay, client application job means what? Getting Spring Bean, calling business method, closing container, all these things, guys. Complete your client application job. So these are the 4 points that you have to remember as a thumb rule while developing Spring Boot standalone application. Okay, don't worry. Okay, don't worry. The people who have attended Spring Basics with me, the people who already know Spring Basics, for them, it's very easy. Maybe the people who are very much fresh to Spring Basics, they might be feeling bit new. Don't worry. After developing 1-2 application, they become old. These points become old. These annotation becomes old. The process becomes old. New remains new until we make it as old. So spending time on new one and making that one as old is our responsibility. Okay, I hope you enjoyed every point of thumb rule, guys. Okay, now I will take your queries, guys. Now I will take your queries. In between, I missed 1-2 queries. Okay, I wantedly ignored 1-2 queries. Those people now they can ask. Okay. I hope you benefited with today's session. This is also another introduction, boss. This is also another introduction only. Okay, guys. Ganesh Bale, there is no standard design pattern, boss. Okay. There is no standard design pattern. Microservice itself an architecture. Microservice itself an architecture. Bikuyado class is already started. There is no such a when batch starts, when batch ends. You are attending initial classes as demo classes. That's it. Already batch started, subject is happening. Webflex will be covered. But Webflex will be covered. Okay, guys. User defined class at the rate component, predefined class at the rate bean. Yeah, those who are having offices, they can leave, boss. Class is over. Naresh, if it is a predefined class at the rate bean, if it is user defined class at the rate component. Predefined class means local date and time. Vivek Singh, use some common sense, Ra Babu. Local date time is not looking like a predefined class. Huh? Come on, guys. Should I tell it is predefined class? How many projects we are going to develop, sir? 4 to 5 projects we are going to develop. Please, can you conduct any session for resume preparation for your experience? In future, it will be there. If you are having urgency, already videos are there in Naresh IT YouTube channel. Go and watch. Which version of Eclipse? Latest version or any version in 2020 enough? In Java, we use a new operator for creating object. Here, we use auto-void injection object other than reduced burden on the developer. Is there any difference, sir? Mamata Tota, here container is creating both target and dependent object. Container is assigning. Let us assume you have a layered application. 5-6 classes are there having dependency on each other. Now tell me, manually creating objects is easier, container creating object is easier. So container creating object is easy. Like that, burden on you will be reduced. Memory level, no advantages. Burden on the programmer will be reduced. Okay. What is your advice to become Java architect? Gain more knowledge in programming, become technical strong. Automatically, you will become job. This one. Is there any placement or training interview preparation? Okay. Sandhya, along with the course, interview tips and placement related tips will be given. Okay, guys. Sonu, you can come. Sonu, you can come. If you have watched videos, you can come. Right. Sandhya, once programming is start, practicals are start, assignments will be given. Okay, Sirisha, Spring Basics means Spring Core module. Spring Core module is not generally for web applications. But in Spring Boot, there is a Spring Boot MVC. In Spring Boot, there is a Spring Boot MVC. Using that, we develop web application. Okay, Harinath Reddy, this batch started. This is the third session. Right, Naveen, deployment of Spring Boot application used in AWS is part of our course. Sudhir, you can create your own IOC container by just using Reflection API, Flyweight design pattern, and factory design pattern. Okay, in Spring Basics class, I conducted one strategy design pattern class. Recollect that. All project related banking application are different projects will be developed, guys. Different projects will be developed belonging to different domains. In companies, we work on old project, but we are saying from scratch, we need to start Spring Boot. Surya Kumar, Spring Boot won't be there in maintenance projects which are already developed. But don't forget, Spring Boot is also old, guys. Spring Boot also came to market 6 years back. So Spring Boot related maintenance projects will be there. Right. Thank you, Sumit Raval. Okay. My question is not related to core. Just want to know, Java developer, do you need to learn data structure and algorithm? Parthasarathi, listen carefully. If you are targeting companies like Google, Amazon, Disha, okay, then concentrate on data structure. If your target is not those companies, goli maro. Don't learn data structure. Don't waste your. Can we create our own starters? Yes, we can create, but not required. What will be the timing of Spring Boot evening batch if we start in future? 6 p.m. Can we use @bean for custom class? We can use, but no need. There is no need because we can happily go for stereotype annotations. Which version of Eclipse I am using? Latest version, you can take it. What is the batch code? What is the batch code? NTSP 714. Don't repeat the questions, please. I will answer every question. Please don't repeat the questions. Upload file. Today's date is Spring. This one, Spring Boot. Today's date is 25th. Today's date is 25th. NTSP 714, guys. And today you have to download 2 things, boss. You have to even download PDF document. You have to even download PDF document. Please download 2 things today. Please download PDF document. Okay, guys. Yesterday's class URL is still, yesterday's class is still not uploaded to YouTube. Once upload, I will share. Okay, guys. Harinad Kasu. How can I make predefined class as Spring Bean? Only by using @bean. What is our batch code? NTSP 714. We are going to use Java 8, Java 9, Java 10, Java 11 features.